Okay. Welcome everybody to the regular meeting of February 7th, 2018. We ask everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And we'll ask our Sheriff, Jerry Sanders, to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let us together give the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We ask you to please remain standing for the invocation by Erica Parham, Assistant District Attorney here in Delaware County.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Lord, as we gather today to address the important business of this county and mark this time known as Black History Month, we acknowledge the struggles endured by those who were part of the African diaspora, knowing that throughout time they and their descendants who lived in our country endured much but contributed greatly to who we all are today. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to fully appreciate these contributions as they allow us all to grow in our understanding of our shared experiences and rich, diverse heritage. Continue to guide us as we live together with the goal of peace, as we care for each other with the goal of kindness, and as we fulfill the promise of being one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Amen. The first item on your list, agenda number 4, is the resolution declaring February as Black History Month. It's my understanding that some of our participants, some of our students were a little bit delayed getting here today because of the icy roads and weather coming from their Springfield schools. So we'll bypass that agenda item for the moment, and Ms. Harris will give me the high sign when the students have arrived, and we can reinsert it back into our agenda. So with that, I will recognize Ms. Marone for a motion on item number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move for the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting from January 31st, 2018.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second motion.
I believe that we likely have a motion to amend the minutes or offer some amendments. I would recognize Mr. Zidek.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. I would like to make a motion to revise the minutes to include the entirety of my comments and Mr. McLean's comments regarding the recommendation of the committee examining a safety study of the Mariner East project.
Is there a second to that motion to amend?
I'll second that. Good. Yes.
Any discussion on the motion to amend?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add my comments on the discussion of that topic from last week as well. I believe there's some I'll leave it at that. So I don't know, do you want to amend, how should we do this? Should we amend that, should we make a separate motion, or Mr. Chairman, what do you suggest?
So perhaps Mr. Zidek will revise his motion to ask to amend the minutes to include the comments of all council members as it relates to the report of the Pipeline Safety Committee.
That'd be fine by me. So I would like to make a motion to revise the minutes to include the entirety of all comments made by County Council regarding the recommendation of the committee examining a safety study of the Mariner East project.
Is there a second to that motion?
I will second.
All right. Any discussion on that motion? I'm supportive of that, and once again, we can join our Book of the Month Club here in Delaware County for the minutes. So, any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to amend, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Ms. Marone, would you restate your motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Move for the approval of the minutes as amended for the regular meeting of January 31st, 2018.
As amended.
As amended.
As amended. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, we will recognize Adam Matlowski Delaware County Industrial Development Authority to describe that agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of council. What's before you is a request for approval of resolution 2018-1, which provides the county's consent pursuant to section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code for an issuance by Delaware County Industrial Development Authority of bonds in amount not to exceed $16 million for the benefit of a project in Darby Borough for Vision Academy Charter School. This was discussed yesterday at the agenda meeting. As I said at that time, this does not involve any governmental monies, no county monies. This is the authority is a conduit issuer. And BB&T is the underwriter, and this has been approved by the authority, and we ask for your approval.
Thank you. Ms. Marone?
Thank you, Mr. Metlowski. Move for the approval of Resolution 2018-1, providing the county's consent pursuant to Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended to the issuance by the Delaware County Industrial Development Authority of its bond in the amount not to exceed $16 million for the purpose of financing a project for Vision Academy Charter School in the County of Delaware, Pennsylvania, subject to solicitor's approval.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I would ask, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Matlowski, could you just describe for the benefit of the students and maybe others here, give us sort of a 2-minute overview of what a conduit issuer is, why one might do that, and why it benefits all of us to have this in place?
Okay. The conduit issuer, it means it's not the authority's money. The money is actually either comes from the bank or in this case from bonds that we sold. This program is in place because what it allows is these bonds are, the money is lent at tax exempt. In other words, the bondholders, the interest that they earn, they do not have to pay income or federal income tax on, which allows them to charge a lower interest rate than would normally be charged if they went out for a commercial loan. This is done in order to support economic development, and it's also for 501c3s, which is what this is here, and it's pursuant to federal tax law. The particular project in question is for a school that will be in Darby Borough. They are rehabbing a currently unused property on Quarry Street, it's an old industrial property, and it's going to be turned into a school. That's what the project is for. And the benefit, of course, is that for the 501c3, they pay less financing costs because their interest rates are lower. And the benefit to the public is the project. The building is back in use, the school's up and running, etc. Thank you.
Is there any other further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Matlow.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Item number 7 on the agenda, I'll recognize Pat Killian, our Director of Commerce for the County of Delaware, to describe that agenda item.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of council. We have on the agenda the grant for restricted gaming funds to cover the operational expenses of the Economic Development Oversight Board. The Economic Development Oversight Board is a 501c4 formed in 1989, which acts as the umbrella administrative agency for a number of economic development entities that work out of the Commerce Center. It has created a one-stop shop. There's the Redevelopment Authority, the Industrial Development Authority, the Industrial Development Corporation, the Stadium Authority, the Area Loan Organization, the Certified Economic Development Organization of the county. This is for operational expenditures, not program expenditures, and since it comes out of restricted gaming funds, which are actually the money is generated originally by the Redevelopment Authority, the money goes, because since we sold the land the casino's on, it goes to the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth comes to the county, and the county it comes back to the Economic Development Oversight Board, which uses it to defray the cost of the other authorities, including the Redevelopment Authority. We've been very active over the years. We've seen a number of, seen the economy of this county change from industrial to post-industrial to service. We're going through the digital world. very proud of what we've done. We just pulled up some Bureau of Labor statistics yesterday afternoon. We had come out of the recession quicker and stronger than any other county in the Commonwealth. We've added 9,000 jobs in the last 5 years. We've added 1,000 businesses. So we're just about 14,000 businesses in the county, and the current job number in Delaware County is 199,533 people. In June of 2013, it was 189,795. We also act as the compliance officer for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the Capital Loan Program. Currently, we are administering $245 million, of which we are responsible for $35 million of capital loans. These are programs that come out of the capital budget to go to build firehouses, the Broomall firehouses, building some buildings at Grady College, building some buildings at Newman College, and a variety of other things. So very labor intensive, we're doing a lot of work. If I may elaborate just a little bit, at your pleasure, Mr. Chairman and members of council, but it's always a mistake to give me a microphone. What do we have planned this year? What do we see going on? As part of our long-term economic development strategy, we decided we really had to spend some intensive time in some of the smaller communities and some of the business districts in building specific plans for those communities. We were working on this for about a year and a half. We're prepared to roll something out by the end of the first quarter, where we will spend time working with not only the elected officials, but the business community, in particular communities, to see what their vision is, to see what we can do to help the struggling, in many cases, boroughs rebuild their central business districts. Ancillary to that, and this is going to take a little longer than the first quarter, some may be familiar with the decision that was made in 2005 called the Kello decision, which really, not necessarily the decision, but the reaction of the General Assembly to the Kello decision, made it very difficult for communities to go in and clean up blighted properties in their communities. So we want to figure out a way, with the assistance, candidly, of this council and others in the Planning Commission, if there's anything we can do to mitigate those circumstances. Secondly, I'd spoken earlier about the movement towards digital. We have a business accelerator, which we talked about a little bit yesterday. We have a company that does digital work. We would like to put together a program where we can, and we should be ready to go with that one in about a month and a half, where we can develop a pilot program to assist many of the smaller businesses in the county in marketing themselves digitally. That's the way to go. Look, I'm a digital idiot. I need people who know what they're doing, so we want to work on that. And thirdly, and this is going to be a real stretch, it's going to take all hands on board, but I also mentioned yesterday that we're out interviewing the business community as part of a state program called Engage PA. How do we build a program where this county can be at the forefront of assisting the business community and working through what is a jungle and morass of healthcare? What does the little guy do? I can't tell you what to do. The big guy, the Boeings, everybody, they know what to do. How can we build a program, have this county take the lead with the business community in demonstrating that we're there for our businesses that are there every day and we make their lives easier? So this money helps us operate, and I'm here to answer any questions.
I would recognize Ms. Barone for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Killian. Move for the approval of a grant to the Economic Development Oversight Board for the calendar year 2018 in the amount of $628,000 utilizing restricted gaming funds, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I will just, Ms. Coogan, state my abstention. The law firm where I'm employed has provided legal services in the past to the EDOB.
So move it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, council members.
Item number 8, Ms. Moran.
Move for the approval of an agreement with Capital Strategies LLC to provide government relations services to Fair Acres, emergency services, and other areas for a monthly amount of $7,000 plus out-of-pocket expenses for a period beginning January 1, 2018 through December 31st, 2018, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Chairman, I'd ask to be recognized.
Certainly, Mr. Zadi.
I wanted to raise an issue regarding the committee that was to study the safety study of the Mariner East project. Some of you may have been in attendance at yesterday's meeting, at which point it was decided that the committee would be reconstituted, that Mr. Culp would replace Mr. McLean on the committee, and there were a number of motions and quite a bit of discussion regarding amending today's agenda to include discussions about how we might move forward with a study of the safety of the pipeline. At the end of the day, we were unable to reach an agreement to amend today's agenda, and there was some frustration expressed by those in attendance at yesterday's meeting. I did have occasion, and I wanted to let the assembled folks here understand, and also to express to council that Mr. Culp and I did have occasion to meet both yesterday and this morning to discuss whether or not we would be able to find common ground to make a recommendation to council as to how we might move forward with an examination of issues surrounding the pipeline. Mr. Culp and I, given the short amount of time, have not been able to come to an agreement as of yet, but we have, I think, made some ground towards that end and have a plan as to what next steps we might take to try and reach common ground. I know council also, some members of council also were concerned yesterday with not rushing into a decision without there being enough time for the committee to perhaps spend some more time on the issue. So I wanted to report back today that Mr. Culp and I have met twice. We are planning to meet and or speak again this coming Friday, and we hope to have something in short order.
Anybody else have any comment on that item? Thank you, Mr. Zadi. Recognize Ms. Moran for agenda item number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move for the approval to renew an agreement between the County of Delaware and Elwyn Employment Services to provide custodial services for the term beginning January 1, 2018 through December 31st, 2018, in the amount of $126,000, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second the motion.
And we have Mr. Tabano here, Director of our Facilities and Management here. We want to talk about that proposed agreement, Mr. Tabano.
Good morning, Chairman, members of council. As you read before you is a renewal of a contract between the County of Delaware and Elwyn Services for a one-year period to do custodial work for us in our buildings. The buildings happen to be the Toll, Sweeney, Curran, and Fronfield. And this cost will be $126,000. This program's been running since early 80s. It's a vocational program in between the county and Elwyn. They provide us a supervisor, custodial coaches, and plus or minus 10 people. It's a fluctuating program. People come and go as they went through the program. The goals of the program is to, for one, help the county clean our buildings, but the main goal is to help residents of Delaware County that need help get back into the workforce. They come in here, they go through the program. Once they're at the skill level to go back in the workforce, one of the ideas, and we have done it over the years, is the county will hire some of those employees. In lifetime frame, we probably had hired over 12 people out of that program. Just last year, we hired one out of the program who's actually cleaning this meeting room and so forth on this floor, doing a very good job for us. Program, as I say, is It's basically a win-win for everybody. We're helping the residents that need help in Delaware County, and in the long run, we're saving money in tax dollars to clean those buildings. So with that, I request your approval for this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Tabano. There's been a motion, I believe there was a second. Is there a discussion on the motion? I just want to make a comment on it. I want to thank Mr. Tabano and his staff for the great work that they do with this. I think it's a terrific program. There's a need for many of the specially able people in our community to have a place where they can go to work and have worth and all the things that people desire to do. And there's those 10 or 12 employees from Elwyn that we have here, we see on a daily basis. And I think everybody agrees they're some of our most special people that we have in the whole courthouse complex, and they certainly add much to our workforce here in Delaware County and add to our lives in addition to what they do for the workforce. So I thank you for presenting that. Is there any other discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 10.
Move for a request by the Controller's Office for the payment of current bills.
Second motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All the council has had the opportunity, Ms. Phelps did provide to us a list of the current bills to review. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two items today. The first is a report back on a little bit of research Mr. Zidek asked me to undertake yesterday afternoon. And with the issue as presented to me was whether council could require the LEPC to undertake the hazardous risk analysis. And I guess it's really a two-part answer. I don't think that council can mandate that. However, I do think that the LEPC has the power to do that study, and I think that that council has the power to request it under the Hazardous Materials and Emergency Planning Act. Just for a little bit of elaboration, an important thing to keep in mind is that the definition of emergency management under that act includes planning for prevention. Section 203G2 of the act, Mr. Zidek read last week, among some others, and that allows the LEPC to take appropriate action to ensure implementation and updating of the local emergency response plans required by this act. So if the LEPC deemed it appropriate to undertake such a study in order to have the knowledge to update emergency response plan, then they would be empowered to do so. But more importantly is Section 203J of the Act. That says that the local committee may perform other emergency management advisory duties as requested by the county elected officials. So again, keeping in mind that emergency management includes planning for prevention, I think that upon the request of county council, the LEPC could also undertake that study if so requested. I think it's also important for Mr. Culp and Mr. Zidek, when they're planning to make their recommendation to council, to keep in mind the sensitivity of some of this information. Sarah can provide some guidance. Sarah, Title III is the federal law that the Hazardous Materials and Emergency Planning Act derives from. And that can provide some guidance on informing the community. And really, what it requires is information to community on how to deal with an emergency, a release of materials, for example. I think that there is some concern underlying that act, and you'll see it in our right to know law too, about having too much information out there that could be used for someone with ill intent to cause a disaster. So I think that when considering this, the council should be guided by the sensitivities of the information as well as the need to inform the community and the need for transparency. I think there's a delicate balance there. The other issue I have today is a request for council to authorize the filing of 11 petitions for the termination of parental rights with the Orphans Court. These petitions have been placed on council's conference room table for review.
I recognize Ms. Barone for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Move for the approval to file 11 petitions for the termination of parental rights with the Orphans Court.
Second the motion.
If there's a motion and a second, is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Mr. Manager. We want to go back. I see Your Honor, Judge Nichols here. We skipped over the agenda item. I think we're waiting for the students. They were just delayed a little bit with the weather, so with your indulgence, Judge, we can, the remaining matter we have is public comment. We can do that, and then whether or not the students arrive, we'll do that agenda item after that. Is that all right? I'm sensitive to the court's time. So with that, we're up to item number 12 on our agenda. This is the time for public comment. So if any member of the public does have comments or questions, please come to our microphone and just let us know your name and address. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Stephen Sarazin, 730 14th Avenue, Prospect Park. I just would like to say I know folks who live near the path of the pipeline. I also know at least one person who works in a pipeline-related job. And I think it's really important that we have a process to look into that where everybody feels like they've had a seat at the table, and where it's an open process so people can have confidence that it was looked into seriously. It seems like from the state on down, a lot of authorities have sort of punted the ball on this. And I think that the local townships and boroughs don't have the power to do anything about this issue, really, but the county might. So thank you.
All right. Seeing no further public comment, we will like to. Good morning.
Good morning, Keith Miari, 407 Meeting House Lane in the. I know on the agenda today that you discussed the arrangement between County of Delaware and Elwyn Employment Services to provide custodial services here at the county building. And I know that that's a very important agreement and process that allows people with developmental disabilities to be able to have meaningful work and contribute to the community. There's another Elwyn work facility that's located on Judy Lane in Aston. It's approximately 50 feet from the proposed route of the Mariner East 2 pipeline. I have a very dear friend whose brother works there, and so I will speak today on behalf of her concerns. What happens in the event of a leak or explosion on the pipeline in close proximity to a vulnerable population, such as those working at the Elwyn facility? Looking at the route of the pipeline through the map, it appears that if those individuals were to attempt to follow Sunoco's recommendation to run half a mile upwind, that they would actually have to cross the pipeline. So these are the types of dilemmas that are causing concern in the community and beg the question if some governmental agency could assess that risk and provide a plan for the community so that those individuals who work there and their family members know that there's a plan in place that makes sense and will protect those vulnerable populations. As far as the concern about transparency versus homeland security issues, the biggest concern always for homeland security issues is when you have vulnerable populations in close proximity to something such as the Mariner pipeline, which is transporting ethane, propane, and butane. So I think we know where those places are. Whenever it's next to a school, when it's next to an Elwyn facility, those are places of great concern. And I think the transparency that we need is how are those populations going to be protected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any further public comment? Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, council members, ladies and gentlemen. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm totally unfamiliar with the processes and procedures here. I am, however, a resident of 226 Valley Road, so I understand I can come and make a public comment on something that I know this morning Mr. Zidek and Mr. Culp touched upon.
Excuse me, ma'am, could you just state your name, and I know you said your street address, could you get the town you live in?
Sure, it's Rosemary Fuller, 226 Valley Road in Media, Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
When we were first approached by Sunoco regarding the easement of the HDD on our property, that's the horizontal direct drilling, we were assured that there would be no damage to our property since the pipe would be 75 feet underground. We took Sunoco at their word. In the meantime, since drilling has begun, it's been brought to our attention that in fact many homeowners have suffered damage primarily with their private wells, but also groundwater, sinkholes, etc. So where did that reassurance come from? How were we expected to believe anything other than what we were told? After further inquiries, it's been brought to our attention that a thorough and independent risk assessment analysis was never conducted for our area, your area, which for a project of this magnitude requires your comprehension. Basically, we were given false statements by a company doing what appeared to be nothing more than keeping their fingers crossed. This is quite honestly shocking and appalling and shows a marked lack of concern, if not more than that, on behalf of all those involved in the Pennsylvania Pipeline project. I'm submitting these comments as a layperson unfamiliar with the technical terminology, details, and scientific engineering knowledge required for a project of this scale and complexity, as used in the report I received. And as homeowners whose private well is located within approximately 150 feet, not than 490 feet as specified on the Sunoco report, of the proposed drilling area based upon the engineering plans provided. On the well location map, our well is marked as, and I've got the number here, I'm going to submit this report, and from the scale of the map can be seen to be approximately 150 feet from the proposed HDD. We measured this ourselves to confirm the mistake by Sunoco. Additionally, our son has type 1 diabetes, which unlike the more common type 2 diabetes, a metabolic disease, is an incurable, life-threatening autoimmune disease. This results in him having a weakened immune system, making the supply of fresh, clean, potable water absolutely necessary to his continued health and well-being. There are several things that we find troubling about these plans, but we are most perturbed by the cavalier attitude that Sunoco are taking toward local wells and aquifers. As mentioned previously, our private well is located 100 feet from the proposed pipeline. This alone highlights the fact that Sunoco got this wrong, highlights Sunoco's failure to accurately record private well details, and is in itself an indication of the lack of attention that has gone into these plans. Based upon our interpretation of the proposed engineering drawings, our well and pump is within the drilling zone. This clearly causes us some concern when reviewing the discussion regarding inadvertent returns, or IRs as identified by Sunoco, regarding groundwater management. My review of the geological information provided concludes that our groundwater is likely originating from within the fractures and joints that provide secondary porosity of bedrock. This report mentions that the potential exists that turbid water or dilute drilling fluids may be discharged to the waters of the Commonwealth, and that Sunoco does anticipate that HDD activities, this is in quotes, could affect individual well use during active drilling for wells located within 150 linear feet of the HDD, which would include our private well. Additionally, the information provided by Sunoco indicated that drilling fluids under pressure migrated into open fractures at depth within bedrock and traveled to the surface. And these discharges, if large enough, can affect the local water table and possibly affect domestic water supply yields. These issues above can produce two kinds of problems. First, our wells can be completely drained, just as they were at the Shone Road site in Chester County and the Tunbridge site in Delaware County. Secondly, as the water from the aquifer drains out from the drill hole, it could pour into the Rocky Run wetlands, carrying contamination with it. Sunoco does not properly address either of these issues. Our concerns are further confirmed by the development of a contingency plan to address these potential technical issues. Given this technical information, we must conclude that this drilling will affect the quality and potentially quantity of water within our private well. This begs the question regarding what safeguards will be employed to protect the quality of our private well and resulting groundwater. Additionally, what recourse does my family have when, not if, the quality of my water is impacted by this drilling program based upon our interpretation of the information provided? That is not specified or clearly stated within the Sunoco report. The document further mentions establishing a communication and response plan to respond to complaints from well owners during HDD activities upon confirmation of any impact from drilling operations and provide alternative water supplies where needed. Isn't this a little like the proverbial closing of the stable door after the horse is bolted? As mentioned previously, our son has a weakened immune system and cannot tolerate any potential contamination or reduction of quality to our water. Additionally, it is not clear what constitutes alternative water supply and how this would impact our quality of life, let alone our property value. Please define the state's approach to this process, understanding that our interpretation of the proposed plan is that any water quality impacts will be mitigated or addressed after they have been identified. We are formally noting on record that a plastic tank or bottled water is not acceptable to us, given our concern for the health and well-being of our son and the quality of life for our family. Although not germane to this technical discussion, it is not clear what legal recourse we have should this drilling impact our well. We understand that our well is likely constructed within some type of fractured rock. The Sunoco document mentions the use of drilling fluids with grout, which it appears to us as laymen are designed to be injected into the rock to impede any lost water, which in our minds could dry within the fractures, providing water to our well, potentially affecting the quantity and quality of water that is provided by our well. It is also not clear what health risk is associated with this drilling process, let alone the material that may be transported within and through the pipelines. We have seen news reports from other areas where there have been sinkholes, fires, explosions, and other issues associated with this drilling methodology and gas oil transport. We would like to understand what safety measures are being employed to protect the health and safety of our family and our neighbors, as that is not clearly stated or stressed. Last but not least, Sunoco was required by its August 9th settlement agreement to consider alternative routes for this pipeline. This is a legal commitment. In every respect so far, in every report so far, including these two for the Chester County and Delaware County stretches, Sunoco dismisses the possibility of other routes by stating they are, in brackets, not practicable, without supplying evidence of any serious alternative consideration. I'm respectfully requesting serious consideration of our concerns and look forward to your response. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning, sir.
Good morning. Mitch Trumecki, 187 Middletown Road, Glen Mills, PA. I would again like to encourage the council to very quickly form a committee to look at the situation about this pipeline safety issue. It needs to be done at a level where we incorporate scientists and engineers knowledgeable about the products and the nature of this pipeline and what constitutes a safe and dependable place to live in Delaware County. I grew up, I lived in Delaware County all my life. I went to school in Delaware County. I work in Delaware County. I bleed Delaware County. And I want to say that I feel as though my safety is at issue if we can't get an agreement among the council members to look at this issue in a nonpartisan way to protect the residents of Delaware County. Listen, I've gone to many, many meetings at township levels that Sunoco was present at. And at every meeting, Sunoco reassured the public over and over about the safety of this pipeline. As a very young man, I went to meetings out in western Pennsylvania where the same issue came up over and over again. The company said with unequivocally that this is safe. They have safety measures built in, with redundancies built in. That was Metropolitan Edison, the owner and operator of 3 Mile Island. Let's not have a reoccurrence with the pipeline in Pennsylvania as we did with 3 Mile Island. Please, I'm asking you, as a nonpartisan committee, get together and come up with a strategy to tell the residents about the issues that might be involved with this pipeline. Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Good morning. Eric Friedman, 2 Fallbrook Lane in Glen Mills. The issue with the pipeline has a great deal to do with the materials that Sunoco is transporting in a 1930s era repurposed pipeline, in which it proposes to transport in greater quantities throughout Delaware County. Just to be clear, these materials, if they're released from the pipeline, they convert from liquid to gaseous phase. In gaseous form, these materials are colorless, odorless, extremely flammable or explosive, and perhaps worst of all, they're heavier than air. So they tend to concentrate in low-lying areas and to move along the ground. They can remain in combustible concentrations for long distances. In fact, Sunoco has leaked these materials from its pipeline systems 3 times during 2016 and 2017, including once here in Delaware County. So the probability of further releases, I don't think, can be disregarded. So therefore, it's reasonable to have a study that informs the public about the populations that are in harm's way, how many there are, where they're located. And I, again, reiterate the council has an opportunity to provide this information to the public. With respect to purported security needs, the Department of Homeland Security has confirmed there's really no secret here to be kept. The off-site locations are clearly visible. The pipeline route is marked in some places. The depth of the pipelines is marked. Population data is available from the United States Census. It's not a secret about where the population densities lie within Delaware County. So there's not actually a secret to be kept. The issue, Mr. Chairman, is that there's not been a credible plan provided for the public. The question that has been on my mind for quite a while is not what first responders will do, but what will the residents do in the event of a large leak of these materials? Because there's not been a credible plan provided. You know, if this meeting room was my living room, for example, it would be important to know at all times the wind direction. Is anybody aware of the wind direction this morning on council? It's critically important to know that there's a leak and to proceed in the correct direction. Going in the right direction is really important. We don't even have a credible notification system. County Emergency Services has confirmed that the Delco alert system has not been evaluated for the potential that its use might itself cause an ignition source. And that's a concern because we don't even have a credible notification system. I just want to address one accident that happened in Delaware County. It happened on Valley Road. It was discovered by the landowner on April 10th, 2015. It was a leak of hazardous liquids from an old Sunoco 12-inch hazardous liquids pipeline. The landowner discovered it on April 10th, 2015, when he smelled gasoline while he was walking on his property. Sunoco tested his water the next day, and a couple of days later, wrote him a letter enclosing his test results, the test results from his well. Sunoco said in the letter, as we discussed, the results were identified as ND, which means non-detect. The interesting thing, Mr. Chairman, is that Sunoco attached the test results to this letter, the letter saying the results were non-detect. In fact, the results were not non-detect. They were positive for MTBE, a gasoline additive which Sunoco had manufactured. And so this is the kind of behavior, I think, that leads to a level of mistrust of this company, given its particularly bad record of 296 leaks from its pipeline systems just since 2006, many of which have happened recently. I'm obviously not going to talk about 296 accidents that we've been here for quite a long time. That's not the complete record, Mr. Chairman, that's just since 2006. I just wanted to highlight the one accident on Edmont in 2015 because it showed that Sunoco had not detected the defect that caused this leak, nor had it detected that the leak was occurring. And so these are troubling concerns. I think what the public is asking for council to do is to evaluate the public safety risk and to make that information publicly available, and I may ask to do so sooner rather than later.
Thank you, sir. Returning to our agenda, I see our students have arrived. Thank you for your diligent efforts in getting here this morning. I know it was tough sledding this morning. But it is my privilege this morning to present the resolution declaring February as Black History Month here in Delaware County, as it is across the United States of America. County Council is proud to recognize the accomplishments of African Americans throughout our history, all of which helped move our country towards a more equal and just society. Black History Month, which is celebrated during the month of February, was started by historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans. Today is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans, and it is a time we designate to recognize the central role that they took in shaping United States history. Today we are proud to continue to celebrate the lives and accomplishments of great African American leaders, including famous individuals from Delaware County. You'll hear more about these individuals later. In Delaware County, we are privileged to have the leadership of Delaware County Court of Common Pleas Judge Nathaniel Nichols, who has joined us today along with his wife Cheryl Nichols, a retired teacher who taught with the Wallingford-Swarthmore School District for 32 years. As scholars of African American history, Judge Nichols